Hygiene during the era of the American Wild West likely reflected the challenging circumstances of the time, notably lacking in cleanliness. Pioneers, both men and women, embarking on the arduous journey across the North American frontier, encountered unforgiving weather conditions and rugged terrain, making it exceedingly difficult to find suitable bathing spots. Clean water, a fundamental necessity for personal hygiene, became a scarce commodity during these expeditions, often presenting a life-or-death situation. In such harsh conditions, the imperative of survival often took precedence over concerns for cleanliness. Consequently, enduring days or even weeks without a proper bath, compounded by cramped living conditions and inadequate sanitation facilities, perpetuated an environment permeated by unpleasant odors, widespread disease, and a generally unsanitary way of life in the Wild West. Lard soap, whiskey, and pencils. Hair care practices in the untamed American frontier were nothing short of intriguing. Instead of the scented shampoos we're accustomed to today, pioneers relied on a rather practical yet unscented combination of lard and lye soap bars. But the ingenuity didn't stop there. Some adventurous souls experimented with an unusual concoction of whiskey and castor oil to cleanse and nourish their hair, an undoubtedly wild choice for hair care. Imagine the audacity of applying such unconventional products to one's hair. As for styling, creativity knew no bounds. Women of the era ingeniously used pencils as makeshift curling tools, wrapping their hair around them in hopes of achieving charming curls. Such resourcefulness exemplifies the resilience and adaptability of pioneers in the Wild West, who made do with whatever they had at their disposal to maintain personal grooming standards amidst challenging circumstances. Outhouses that smelled horrid? In the Wild West, daily necessities like using the restroom took on a decidedly unpleasant aspect. While many envision cowboys and cinematic depictions, the reality was far from glamorous. It was a time marked by less than sanitary practices. Modern toilets were but distant dreams, leaving outhouses as the primary facilities. These outdoor structures, covering pits in the ground, were ubiquitous. Picture the scene: foul odors, swarming insects, and a distinct lack of toilet paper. Indeed, this essential commodity didn't become widespread until the mid-1800s. In its absence, makeshift alternatives like leaves, corn cobs, or grass were reluctantly employed, though far from ideal. The overpowering stench emanating from these facilities was enough to turn even the stoutest stomachs, painting a vivid picture of the challenges faced by individuals navigating the Wild West's less savory aspects of daily life. Beds made of straw. In the bygone era of the past, sleeping arrangements were far from the plush comfort we enjoy today. Picture a world where beds were mere heaps of straw and hay, devoid of any semblance of modern bed frames. While such a setup may seem unimaginable in contemporary times, it was the stark reality for many individuals of yesteryears. In a time when creature comforts took a back seat to mere survival, sleeping on a pile of straw offered a modicum of relief from the unforgiving bare floor. However, the practicalities of maintaining proper sanitation in such circumstances proved to be a significant challenge. Regular replacement of the straw bedding was often unfeasible, leaving individuals to contend with less than ideal sleeping conditions. Consequently, these makeshift beds became fertile breeding grounds for a plethora of unwelcome guests, bugs, lice, and various other creepy crawlies that found refuge amidst the haystacks. Historically, the prevalence of bug-infested straw beds was a common phenomenon in many regions, particularly in rural and frontier areas where resources were scarce and living conditions were harsh. Without access to modern bedding materials or the means to regularly clean and replace the straw, individuals had little choice but to endure the discomfort and inconvenience of sharing their sleeping quarters with an assortment of pests. While the notion of sleeping on bug-infested bedding may elicit feelings of discomfort and revulsion, for many in the past it was simply a fact of life, a small price to pay for a semblance of rest and shelter in the Old West. Despite these challenges, Individuals adapt and persevere, overcoming the difficulties of everyday life. Bars were filled with bad-quality liquor. Within the vibrant atmosphere of old Western saloons, where liquor flowed freely and tales of adventure abounded, a darker reality lurked beneath the surface, a reality that may cause one's skin to crawl. Venturing into these uncharted territories often meant encountering makeshift establishments notorious for serving a dubious concoction known as rot-gut liquor. Comprising a blend of low-quality, often questionable spirits, this libation posed significant health risks to those daring enough to indulge. Tales abound of patrons falling ill after partaking, a testament to the perilous nature of imbibing in such establishments. Yet the hazards didn't end with the dubious libations. Bar rails, seemingly innocuous fixtures, held a sinister secret. Adorned with towels purportedly used to wipe down beer-soaked beards, they concealed a breeding ground of germs and filth. Unbeknownst to patrons, these seemingly innocuous towels harbored a plethora of bacteria, creating an environment ripe for the spread of disease and infection. Historically, the quality of liquor in frontier saloons was often questionable at best. In remote regions where access to high-quality spirits was limited, proprietors resorted to blending whatever spirits were available to create their concoctions. These makeshift brews, dubbed rotgut for their often inferior taste and adverse effects on health, became emblematic of the frontier drinking experience. The practice of using towels to clean bar rails was common in saloons of the era, serving as a practical solution to the constant spillage and messiness inherent in such establishments. However, the lack of proper sanitation measures meant that these towels quickly became breeding grounds for bacteria and other pathogens. Combined with the cramped and often crowded conditions of frontier saloons, it's no wonder that such establishments were hotbeds for the transmission of illness and disease. Thus, while old Western saloons may evoke romanticized notions of rugged charm and adventure, a closer examination reveals a reality fraught with unsanitary conditions and health hazards. The allure of cheap liquor and camaraderie may have drawn patrons in, but the hidden dangers lurking within these establishments serve as a sobering reminder of the harsh realities faced by those living on the frontier. Cowboy bandanas. In the frontier days of the Wild West, cowboy and cowgirl attire served not only as a statement of fashion, but also as a pragmatic solution to the challenges of daily life. Among their array of accessories, bandanas emerged as indispensable tools, offering both utility and hygiene benefits. While primarily utilized to shield against the harsh elements of the untamed wilderness, be it the abrasive winds or scorching sun, a lesser-known advantage of these versatile garments lay in their ability to combat the pervasive odors and germs prevalent in an era marked by limited access to clean water and infrequent bathing. Bandanas, typically worn, draped around the neck or covering the face, served as more than just a fashion statement. In a time when personal hygiene practices often fell short of modern standards, these humble pieces of fabric provided a makeshift barrier against the myriad of unpleasant smells and germs encountered amidst the rugged landscapes of the Wild West. Whether taming a dusty trail or enduring the close confines of communal living spaces, individuals relied on their trusty bandanas to not only shield their faces from the elements, but also to mitigate the spread of germs and odors that pervaded their surroundings. Historically, the prevalence of bandanas as essential accessories in the Wild West can be attributed to their practicality and versatility. Made from durable materials such as cotton or silk, these humble garments offered protection and comfort in a variety of situations, from fending off dust storms to serving as impromptu handkerchiefs. In the absence of modern amenities, individuals relied on ingenuity and improvisation to navigate the challenges of frontier living. In this context, the humble bandana emerged as a symbol of resilience, a practical accessory that not only helped individuals endure the rigors of life on the frontier, but also played a crucial role in maintaining personal hygiene amidst the harsh conditions of the untamed wilderness. Oral hygiene consisted. In the challenging environment of the Wild West, maintaining oral hygiene was often a secondary concern overshadowed by the imperative of survival, rendering a bright smile a rarity. Toothbrushes, considered a luxury, were not readily available to many individuals, leading to neglect in dental care practices for much of the populace. However, the situation worsened considerably when faced with dental ailments such as cavities or the need for root canals. In the case of limited conditions, frontier residents resorted to rudimentary and often crude methods to address dental issues. Shockingly, the preferred approach involved individuals with non-medical backgrounds, such as barbers or even blacksmiths, assuming the role of makeshift dentists. Armed with basic tools like pliers, they performed extractions to alleviate dental pain, a procedure fraught with discomfort and risk. Despite the inherent dangers, the only form of relief available to patients was a potent swig of whiskey, serving as a makeshift anesthetic in lieu of proper medical intervention. Historically, the lack of access to essential dental care resources in the Wild West was a harsh reality faced by many settlers and pioneers. With limited options for professional dental care, individuals were forced to rely on makeshift solutions and the expertise of those with rudimentary knowledge of oral health. Clean water was very scarce. In the Wild West, access to clean water for drinking and personal hygiene was a scarce commodity, far removed from the modern luxury of running water. Throughout the 19th century, as the United States expanded westward, many regions lacked the necessary infrastructure for reliable water supply. While established settlements benefited from advanced irrigation and filtration systems, venturing into uncharted territories meant foregoing these conveniences. For pioneers and settlers in the frontier, the absence of readily available clean water posed significant challenges to daily life. Showering, brushing teeth, and obtaining potable water became daunting tasks, necessitating resourcefulness and adaptation. Rainfall, when it occurred, was eagerly collected as a precious source of hydration and cleanliness. However, in the absence of such natural replenishment, securing sufficient water for basic needs remained a constant struggle, highlighting the harsh realities of frontier living. There, the scarcity of clean water in the Wild West profoundly impacted the daily lives of its inhabitants. The absence of modern water infrastructure meant that access to basic amenities such as drinking water and personal hygiene was often limited and unreliable. Most people didn't have toilet paper. In the Old West, individuals faced unique challenges when it came to addressing their bathroom needs. The absence of modern conveniences meant that toilet paper, as we know it today, was virtually non-existent for much of this era. Instead, frontier dwellers had to improvise, utilizing whatever materials were available to them. Corn cobs, torn pages from magazines or catalogs, and even leaves were commonly employed as substitutes for toilet paper. The history of toilet paper in America traces back to the mid-19th century when Joseph Gaiety introduced the concept of medicated paper in 1857. However, this early form of toilet paper was not sold in the familiar roll format, but rather as individual sheets. It wasn't until the 1890s that roll-style toilet paper, accompanied by the invention of the toilet paper holder, made its debut, offering a more convenient and accessible means of personal hygiene. Despite these advancements, widespread availability of proper toilet paper did not occur until the 1920s, marking a significant milestone in the evolution of bathroom hygiene practices. The Wild West indeed witnessed its fair share of unhygienic bathroom practices, underscoring the resourcefulness and adaptability of frontier residents in the face of challenging circumstances. The phenomenon of infrequent showers in the Wild West reveals a surprising perspective on cleanliness prevalent among pioneers and cowboys. In the rugged expanse of the American West, where dust and dirt were omnipresent, the notion of bathing too frequently was viewed with skepticism. Many believed that excessive washing could compromise their health by leaving their pores vulnerable to bacterial infiltration and disease. However, this belief proved to be a misconception. In reality, the lack of regular access to clean and uncontaminated water posed a significant challenge for settlers, forcing them to forego frequent showers and baths. Cowboys, donning the same attire day after day, became susceptible to persistent fungal infections, thriving amidst the accumulated grime and sweat. Historically, the scarcity of clean water sources in the Wild West contributed to the infrequency of bathing practices among its inhabitants. The challenges of frontier life necessitated resourcefulness and adaptation, often at the expense of modern hygiene standards. Despite the prevailing belief that bathing less frequently was beneficial, the harsh realities of frontier living underscored the importance of proper sanitation and access to clean water for maintaining health and well-being. Barbers. In the Wild West, barbers occupied a revered position within society, admired not only for their skill in cutting hair, but also for their perceived expertise in matters of personal grooming. Considered knowledgeable authorities, they were often sought out for advice on hygiene practices. However, the efficacy of their recommendations was not always reliable. While barbers were lauded for advocating personal cleanliness as essential for comfort and health, some of their suggested practices and products proved to be less than effective. Despite this, their esteemed status within the community remained unscathed, with even women seeking their guidance on matters of beauty and grooming. Historically, barbers played a significant role in shaping grooming habits and standards of hygiene in the Old West. However, the limitations of their knowledge and the efficacy of their suggested products highlight the challenges faced by individuals seeking reliable guidance in an era devoid of modern conveniences and scientific understanding. Some men wore their hair long. In the Wild West, men's hairstyles served as more than mere fashion statements. They were visual narratives of their journeys. The majority of men opted to forego haircuts as they traversed the frontier, leading to long and unkempt locks. This reluctance to groom was often a result of the transient nature of frontier life, with constant travel hindering opportunities for cleaning and self-care. Consequently, their unruly hair served as a tangible indicator of the length of time spent on the road, reflecting not only their adventurous spirit but also their lack of access to regular hygiene practices. As a consequence of their nomadic lifestyle, many men in the Wild West went extended periods without proper bathing facilities, exacerbating the accumulation of dirt and grime in their hair. The resulting stench was undoubtedly pervasive, contributing to the less-than-sanitary conditions prevalent in the frontier settlements. Indeed, the unkempt appearance of men's hair was just one aspect of the broader spectrum of uncleanliness, characteristic of life in the Wild West. Historically, the prevalence of long and dirty hair among men in the Wild West underscores the challenges and hardships faced by frontier inhabitants. Limited access to grooming resources and the demands of a transient lifestyle necessitated compromises in personal hygiene, leaving many individuals with unkempt and malodorous hair as a visible testament to the harsh realities of frontier living. Soaps were made with animal fat. In contrast to the abundance of soap options available in the modern era, the selection during the Wild West period was notably more limited. However, this scarcity did not equate to a lack of cleanliness. Soaps of the time were crafted from a simple yet effective recipe, typically comprising animal fat, lye, and water, with the addition of herbs for fragrance and potential medicinal benefits. While the idea of washing with soaps derived from animal fat may seem unappealing by contemporary standards, it was a common practice reflective of the resources available and the pragmatic approach to hygiene adopted by frontier inhabitants. Historically, the use of animal fat in soap making dates back centuries, with early civilizations utilizing this readily available ingredient to produce cleansing agents. In the Wild West, where resources were limited and self-sufficiency was prized, the use of animal fat-based soaps represented a practical solution to the challenge of maintaining personal hygiene in harsh environment. Despite its humble origins, this simple yet effective cleanser played a vital role in the daily lives of frontier residents. People spit so much, it had to be outlawed. In the bustling saloons of the western frontier, the habit of spitting tobacco was so pervasive that it eventually prompted legislative action. Men freely spat tobacco onto the floors, necessitating the placement of spittoons and cuspidors along the bar to contain the mess. However, this makeshift solution proved inadequate as the floors, covered with sawdust to absorb the spit, became breeding grounds for harmful germs. The unsanitary conditions created by the widespread spitting in saloons contributed to the spread of respiratory diseases such as pneumonia and tuberculosis. Travelers who sought lodging in these establishments often found themselves sleeping amidst this unhygienic environment, further exposing themselves to the risks of illness. In response to the public health concerns posed by rampant spitting, authorities enacted laws to prohibit the practice, particularly in crowded areas like train stations. Violators faced hefty fines and even imprisonment as penalties for engaging in this unsanitary behavior. Historically, the outlawing of spitting in public spaces reflects efforts to address the public health hazards associated with the widespread practice of tobacco chewing and spitting in the Wild West. These legislative measures aim to curb the spread of disease and promote cleaner, healthier environments in frontier communities. Live shows were breeding grounds for germs. In the 1800s, amidst the splendor and excitement of Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, there existed less glamorous truths that shed light on the unsanitary conditions of the era. Beyond the dazzling performances and captivating reenactments, the show encountered difficulties in upholding proper hygiene standards. Hindered by limited access to sanitation facilities, both performers and staff grappled with maintaining cleanliness amidst their demanding schedules. The dusty arenas and bustling encampments of the Wild West show provided fertile breeding grounds for germs and diseases, heightening health risks for all involved, including performers and audience members alike. While the spectacle of the Wild West show captivated audiences and captured imaginations, it also serves as a stark reminder of the prevalent unsanitary practices characteristic of the time. Despite advancements in entertainment and spectacle, the limitations of infrastructure and resources posed significant obstacles to ensuring proper cleanliness and sanitation in public gatherings and performances. Women would clean their faces with river water. In the Wild West, where dirt seemed to cling to every surface, maintaining cleanliness was a constant challenge. However, resourceful women of the era devised their own methods to combat the pervasive filth. Each morning, they embarked on a quest for cleanliness, journeying to nearby springs or streams to cleanse their faces and quench their thirst. Despite their efforts, achieving complete cleanliness was hindered by certain limitations. Privacy was scarce at these bodies of water, making full baths a rare luxury reserved for special occasions. Consequently, splashing their faces with water became the extent of their cleansing routine, leaving them feeling somewhat refreshed but never fully clean. Limited access to bathing facilities and the lack of privacy at communal water sources shaped the daily hygiene practices of frontier inhabitants, emphasizing the resourcefulness and resilience required to navigate life on the frontier. Cowboys and their horses. When picturing cowboys, one conjures images of resilient individuals with strong bonds to their faithful horses, traversing vast landscapes and undertaking daring adventures together. This partnership, steeped in legend, evokes a romanticized vision of the Wild West. However, Beneath this idealized portrayal lies a less glamorous reality. Cowboys, renowned for their sporadic bathing habits, inadvertently subjected their cherished horses to similar neglect. As both rider and mount journeyed great distances, concerns over proper hygiene were often overlooked. Limited access to bathing facilities and the demands of travel contributed to infrequent bathing practices among cowboys, extending to their equine companions as well. Despite the enduring bond between rider and horse, the shared neglect of hygiene underscored the harsh realities of life on the frontier, where practicality often trumped comfort and convenience. Sanitation and bathrooms. While indoor plumbing had already made its debut in major urban centers like New York as early as 1842, it took several more years for the western frontier to catch up. By the year 1920, a mere 1% of households across the entire United States could afford the luxury of any form of indoor plumbing. However, for the vast majority of rural homes scattered throughout the Wild West, access to hand-pumped water was the most they could aspire to. In many respects, bathrooms in the Wild West resembled modern-day porta-potties. The absence of proper sanitation facilities in numerous households across the frontier meant that basic hygiene practices often fell by the wayside. Consequently, unsanitary living conditions prevailed, posing potential health risks to the residents of these areas. Historically, the struggle for adequate sanitation and proper bathroom facilities in the Wild West illuminates the challenges faced by frontier communities in accessing essential amenities. Limited resources and the vast distances between settlements hindered the implementation of modern sanitation infrastructure, leaving many households reliant on rudimentary methods for water supply and waste disposal. The resulting lack of proper hygiene facilities contributed to substandard living conditions and heightened health concerns among frontier residents. Families bathed in the same bath water. In the early years of the Wild West, possessing a bathtub within one's household was a luxury beyond the means of most families. The scarcity of proper bathtubs stemmed largely from the logistical challenges associated with transporting and heating water to fill them. It wasn't until the advent of mail-order catalogs by companies like Sears, Roebuck & Co. in 1894 that affordable tubs became accessible to the general populace. However, even with the availability of catalog tubs, acquiring one was still a significant investment, with prices equivalent to nearly $1,000 in today's currency. As more households gradually obtained bathtubs, a practice emerged wherein family members shared the same bath water, albeit one person at a time, as a means of conserving effort and resources. This tradition of sharing bath water became particularly prominent on Saturday nights, as individuals endeavored to cleanse themselves in preparation for attending church services on Sundays. Despite the growing accessibility of bathtubs, the practice of communal bathing persisted as a pragmatic solution to the challenges of water conservation and household hygiene in the Wild West. Men were way dirtier than women. In the Wild West, maintaining cleanliness was an uphill struggle against the harsh elements. Water scarcity loomed large over the era, rendering bathing a rare luxury for many. Some individuals were fortunate to wash only once a week amidst these challenging conditions. However, an intriguing dynamic emerged. Women emerged as the unsung heroes of hygiene in the frontier. Tasked primarily with indoor chores, women enjoyed relatively better access to precious water sources and consequently maintained a higher standard of cleanliness compared to their male counterparts. Meanwhile, men toiled tirelessly outdoors, contending with dusty winds and pervasive grime without the luxury of frequent bathing. Consequently, being a man during this era often meant enduring perpetual grimminess and unpleasant odors. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the hygiene practices of the Wild West. From makeshift bathing methods to the challenges of maintaining cleanliness in rugged frontier environments, we've explored the fascinating world of hygiene in the Old West.